Hey, welcome sports fans. Charles E. Smith Jr. here, and this is a special production of Inside Sports. This is our Super Bowl wrap-up show, and very proud to be joined today by, he's been a guest before, but none other than Chris Lardieri from FootballNation.com. Now, previously, he's written for the Examiner.com. He's covered the LA Dodgers, covered Major League Baseball for Inside Edge, which is a scouting company which provides content to ESPN Insider and Yahoo Sports, and was writing the West Coast View for Sports Climax. His newest thing is FootballNation.com. So without further ado, and I'm sure he'll fill in any blanks I may have left out, none other than Chris Lardieri.
Charles,
Chris,
thank you for having me. Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, perfect. Now, one other thing is we got to tell everybody that you are, at heart, a New York Giants fan. However, that doesn't stop you from being objective when you write about football and look at matchups and things like that. That's the first thing is, I have my moment when I knew I was really an objective writer slash sports host. Was there a moment for you when you realized that, that the game was really bigger than the team that you liked when it came to breaking things down?
Absolutely. I think for me, also being a New York Yankees fan, guilty as charged. Over the years, I've been able to criticize Alex Rodriguez, and I know he's kind of a polarizing figure, but I think the whole mess with him and the Boli or whatever he claimed the mystery substance was that he was taking did not stop me from my blind interlocking NY loyalty. And I've ripped him over the years on a number of issues. And I think that was the first point for me. And then even with the Giants, I've been a continued critic of Tom Coughlin over the years, and I have to eat my words now.
Well, yeah, and for myself, it was like me growing up in the 70s. I was a fan, and still am, of the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I despised the Raiders, and to me, if they lost every game they ever played, for me as a fan, that would be fine. But I remember back in the 90s when I wound up, I was breaking things down and just looking at the divisions. I found myself actually taking a reasonable / critical look at the Raiders and what they can do to get better and actually win football games. And it was after that show I knew that I had crossed over into the side of objectivity.
Yeah, for those of us who remember the 70s and how bitter those games were in the playoffs, you truly are objective.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get to this game and break down the Super Bowl. The Giants, once again, they were underdogs. I don't know how they were underdogs, but they were. And I think that was one of the things that may have fueled them on this run. Of course, they used the underdog thing in the other run when they were, 13-point underdogs. But this time, I don't see how they wound up being underdogs in this particular game, looking at the roads that they had to take. They beat the Packers, who have the best record in the league. They started out by beating the Falcons soundly. They had to beat the Packers on the road at Lambeau. They went to Frisco. They beat the Niners, beat a 15-1 team. They beat a 13-3 team. And whereas the road the Patriots had, they walked over the Broncos, and then, what can you say? All due respect to Pats fans, but really, they should have lost that game against the Baltimore Ravens.
Absolutely. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what Vegas is thinking. If I ran a sports book, maybe I'd know. But when I saw that the Giants were underdogs at some places it opened 3.5, most 3, I actually became optimistic about the game, taking my journalistic hat off and being a Giants fan. So there's just something about this team with Tom Coughlin, us against the world. We're the underdogs. No one believes in us. You saw it when they blew that easy game to the Redskins to end up 7-7 and kind of in a hole, and they rally from that point on. It's just something that inspires them. And the only analogy I could make is my mom used to say I never worried about getting a term paper done when I was a kid. I may have waited till the 0 hour to do it, but I must have worked well under pressure, and that's the only explanation I have for the Giants.
Exactly. Now, the other thing is, when I was listening to just random things about people breaking down the games, some people pick the Giants, others pick the Patriots. But really, the people who picked the Patriots, what they went with was really the mystique of Belichick. And they were talking about Belichick, like we talked about in pre-production here. Belichick has 2 weeks to prepare. It's hard to beat him twice in one season. They didn't seem to really give the respect to Tom Coughlin, so the Giants seem to have the edge everywhere, because I broke down this game myself. And I thought, okay, the offensive line, they can get that good push up front with their front seven on Brady. The Eli is going to have time to throw because the Pats have basically the worst defense in the league. I didn't see any reason strategically why the Patriots would win, but it seemed to be that the mystique of Belichick is enough to make the team favored in the game.
I agree, and a lot of what I heard similar to you was, well, he's got 2 weeks to look at film, and look what he does when he's got 2 weeks. Well,
right.
I mean, for the most part, the Super Bowl's had that extra bye week for a while now, and it didn't work the last time around with the Giants, and even seeing them this year, it was a close, tight, well-played game that came down to the end, much like the Super Bowl. And while Belichick's a great coach, ultimately it comes down to the players on the field. And when you have a receiver like Edelman filling in at cornerback, you're behind the 8 ball without a pass rush. So there's only so much Bill can do to work his magic. And I give him credit. They played a great game, but you make a couple mistakes, and the Giants are going to capitalize on it, which they did.
Exactly, and that was one of the things I looked at, and I do have to give them credit as well. Is I thought that it would be, it would not be as close as it was, but they did come, very close, and some say a Wes Welker drop from actually winning the game. But when I look at this Patriots team, look at how they were built, and when I talk about the mystique, they haven't won the Super Bowl since the 05 season. And that team, though, the original Patriots team, yes, Tom Brady was the quarterback, but those games were won because of the suffocating defense. You had Richard Seymour and Willie McGinnis up front, and those linebackers, anchored by Mike Vrabel, by Teddy Bruschi, and then the defensive backfield, Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, Rodney Harrison. So they were stout on defense. But ever since they've gone away from the defense, and now Brady is putting up record numbers through the air, and they're scoring a lot of points, but they are not that same team, the same blueprint of a team that won the 3 Super Bowls in 4 years.
Exactly, and what Belichick has gotten away from was his core, with what made him successful with the 1980s Parcells Giants, defense first, and everything else falls into place. Even when you look at Brady and his mystique, when he was winning rings, who were his receivers? Deion Branch, Troy Brown, no one that sticks out at you. The best running back he had was Corey Dillon, so it was defense first, and they've gotten away from that, and they're going to have to address that in 2012.
Exactly, and one of the things you've written a recent article about, comparing the comparisons between Tom Coughlin and Bill Parcells, who's going to go down as the greatest coach of all. Which one will it be, Parcells or Coughlin? We'll get into that in a moment. But one of the things I liked about what Parcells does and what you talk about defense is that, to me, he had the perfect kryptonite for the Superman that was the Niners offense in the 80s, and that was he used those active linebackers to really thwart the West Coast offense. So the linebackers could cut off all those quick slant routes and take that away from Montana, and then he had that suffocating ground game. Even though the running backs were not great, little Joe Morris did the best he could, and Maurice Carthon and guys like that. But he had the perfect blueprint, and I think, and you look at, and Belichick is off of that coaching tree as well. He was the defensive coordinator back then, but I wonder at what point did he kind of fall in love with the offensive side of the ball.
It must have been when he realized that he had a quarterback like Brady, and no disrespect to Phil Simms, I love the guy, or even Vinny Testaverde from his Jets days, but when you have a quarterback like that, it's kind of like having a sports car. You want to rev the engine.
Well, true. Well, here's the thing, though. What I found interesting was when I look at the evolution of the Patriots, though. Well, remember they won that first Super Bowl against the Rams in an upset. Then the next year, he kind of had Brady airing it out the whole season. They wind up missing the playoffs. Then they win 2 Super Bowls in a row when they get back to their roots, which was, defense and ball control. But at some point, it seems like in the last 5 or 6 years, he's gotten away from that again.
Yeah, he really has, and he has to focus back on it. And I think one underrated factor that not a lot of people are talking about is one of the people, in addition to his key assistants, Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss, who have since departed, was a departure of their former GM, Scott Pioli, to the Chiefs. And he was behind picking a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that materialized. And what you're seeing now, that Belichick's had a little more control, a little more say in the draft. Some of these guys aren't panning out, or he's got a lot of undrafted free agents that are manning his defensive side of the ball. And while it's great to see guys like that, kind of the proverbial Victor Cruzes of the world, become starters in the NFL, they're just not the same caliber like you hit on later. There's no Seymour there. There's no Brewski. There's no Harrison. So they've kind of missed in the draft the last few years, and it's caught up to them.
Exactly. And now let's go ahead and talk about the offensive side of the ball. And that is when you look at Eli Manning and Tom Brady. Now, Brady, I always thought it was kind of curious because his whole reputation, his mystique was built on not touchdown-winning drives, but really driving into field goal range. He would drive to the 30-yard line. Vinatieri was money. And that was kind of what – now, you can't fault Brady because his team was only down by 1 or 2 points. Of course, that's all you need is a field goal. But that was kind of a little bit of an anomaly there, was that here you have a great quarterback, and going all the way back to the tuck rule game, it was his whole mystique had been built on driving into field goal range. Now you have Eli, which is the traditional thing, both these last Super Bowls, incredible 80-plus yard drives to win the game in Super Bowl 42 and then just now in Super Bowl 46.
That's a great point, Charles. And he's Brady's now 0 for 2 when he's gotten the ball last in both of those Super Bowls. And I know a lot of people like to throw the greatest ever comparison between he and Montana. But you look at Montana when he had to do it against the Bengals, he did. He got the ball into the end zone, and that's what separates the men from the boys. And you never know. Tom's still got some time left, but what really makes a great quarterback great is that ability to drive the field late in the game when the pressure's on and you need that score. And the Patriots still have a great kicker, but they needed a touchdown. They didn't get it Sunday.
Right, and well, they have not won a Super Bowl since Vinatieri left as well. Or they have not won a Super Bowl since Tom Brady dumped his pregnant girlfriend and ran off with a supermodel. We could say that, but I digress here. Let's go ahead and pull it back in. We won't mention Spygate either.
Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, a lot of the conspiracy theorists are going to come out on that. But I know at least this week in listening to snippets of Boston Talk Radio, Giselle is now the equivalent of Yoko Ono to the Patriots. So they're pointing the finger at her right now.
Well, I think, too, when I look at the last 2 Super Bowls and we look at Brady, now granted he's gotten the ball with a minute to play and needs to take it down the field, but really I don't see even though he didn't make it and it's a long drive, but still, I didn't see the same poise from him that we're used to when he's driving into field goal range in a big game.
Yeah, I think the difference with that is he's gotten rattled. The Giants hit him a lot in Super Bowl 42. He got a couple shots. Justin Tuck got a good one on him. At some point in the third quarter, he got hit so hard they thought maybe his left shoulder had gotten dinged again, and it really affected him. And this is kind of another storyline with the Patriots, the offensive line. You're going to have a franchise quarterback like that. You've got to beef up your line and protect him, and either that or get rid of the ball quicker. So I think that was a kind of an unsung factor in the game. The Giants didn't get as many sacks on him, but when they needed to hit him or get the sack, they did.
Exactly, and like I said, giving credit to the Patriots when they came out, and there was a time in the third quarter there where it really looked like the Patriots were going to take control of the game. Brady had 2 really nice long drives there in the third quarter, but then down the stretch it was about Eli, and just like Eli hit David Tyree, who was on the sidelines for this game watching, and David Tyree, who will never have to pay for dinner or pay for a drink ever in the city of New York as long as he lives. But Mario Manningham this time, with the catch, the throw, it was the perfect storm.
It was unbelievable. One of the most unbelievable catches you'll ever see in a Super Bowl. And thanks to instant replay, instituted by the NFL to confirm that for all of us. But yeah, I think Chris Collinsworth was dead on. This is the equivalent of the David Tyree catch. I mean, yeah, Tyree had to jump up. He was about to get hammered by Rodney Harrison. He caught the ball against his face mask. But Manningham's catch was nothing to sniff at either. That was an unbelievable catch to get your toes down like that. And another thing that's kind of gone forgotten is it was a perfect throw. It was put right on Manningham's fingertips, and
right.
The safety had come over to cover it. And how he threaded the needle like that, I still don't know.
Right, and when you look at the trajectory of the ball, it was kind of, the ball itself was sort of out of bounds when Manningham caught it, but just enough out of bounds to get it over his shoulder so he could catch it and stay in bounds. And when we look at we always talk about quarterback and receiver having a connection and communicating. Remember, the opposite side of the field, almost the same play, Manningham runs the wrong angle and basically makes the catch, but he had run himself out of bounds by the time the ball would get there because he got the wrong angle. But he and Eli, they get together, get on the right page, and when they need it, they get right down to it. And that's the thing about just working as a team and not getting down on anyone. Everyone makes mistakes, but when you need it, go ahead and do it.
Exactly, and also a gutsy call by Kevin Gilbride, who's much maligned at times in New York, but to throw that pass so deep in your own territory and it worked, they hit the jackpot.
Right, and we look at another Super Bowl, which was Super Bowl 45, was the Santonio Holmes catch that he got from Ben Roethlisberger. It was the same thing. He had just missed that play in the other corner of the end zone. They run the exact same play on the other side.
Exactly.
And it winds up being a game-winning touchdown. So that's what really teamwork is all about.
You hit the nail on the head, Charles.
All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and get into when we look at the Tom Coughlin, Bill Parcells debate. Obviously, Coughlin off of the Parcells coaching tree, and he's now building a name for himself. Parcells was the one who got the Giants really back on the map. We talk about the mastery of defense, ball control. He did what he had to do to win and instilled that. And then, that gives birth to Belichick. Now we got Coughlin. When it comes down to it, though, and you just recently wrote an article on footballnation.com, Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, each have 2 rings. Talk to me.
So basically, when this topic came up and I thought about it, I said, well, no one can ever top Parcells. He's a Jersey guy. He lives in the lore of the Giants, even though he kind of walked away from the team after the Super Bowl in 1991. And when you look at the numbers, a few things I've kind of hit on in this piece is Parcells has 85 victories, including the playoffs in his Giants tenure. Coughlin has 82. They have identical 8-3 postseason records. They both have 2 wins in the Super Bowl each. What I think will inevitably swing the tide towards Coughlin as the greatest ever, a couple of things. First of all, he's completely redone his image. He walked into a team with a rookie quarterback, Eli Manning, the whole lore of him being a taskmaster, clock set 5 minutes ahead, cracking down on players' behavior and so forth. He's really changed that over time. And there was recently a poll where they had taken in the NFL where they asked players of the most hated coach in the NFL, and it was Belichick and Coughlin were both at the top. And it's ironic they faced each other in the Super Bowl. But you talk to Giants players now, and to a man, they love Coughlin. I mean, this guy softened up so much the night before the Super Bowl. He gave him his great Newt Rockne-type speech, and he flat out told the guys, I love you. And that's not the Tom Coughlin who took the job in '04, who was with Jacksonville and Boston College previously. And a couple other things I hit on in my piece is he's done this in the salary cap era. Parcells is a great coach. He's turned around a number of teams, but there was no salary cap in the 80s with the Giants. He had Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and Carl Banks on that D. Those guys weren't going to go anywhere. Once they locked them up, they had them for years. So there's been a lot more turnover. The other thing with Coughlin, too, is he's beaten what some consider to be the 21st century dynasty in the NFL, the Patriots. In both games, he was underdogs. In both cases during that season, the team had to rally in December when the New York media had all but had him fired twice. They made the playoffs both times, went on the road, a ridiculous winning streak, and made it to the Super Bowl, and in one case, a humongous upset, and in this year, according to Vegas, an upset. So I think, and the final thing I think is, Coughlin is now liable to retire as Giants head coach. He said he wants to be back. Owner John Mara said they're going to sit down and talk about an extension. Now that he's got the heat off his back, even if he doesn't win another ring with the Giants, the roster is still fairly stocked. They've got some defensive players coming back from injury, especially in the secondary. They don't win Super Bowls, at least make a couple more runs, and he's going to pad his record. So body of work, when we look at it down the road, I think what we're going to find is Coughlin probably will go down as the best coach in Giants history of this era, at least the modern era.
Exactly. And, the other thing is, I think between the Super Bowls, we had to look at the changes that took place with the Giants team that won Super Bowl 42, and that was, you had Eli really coming into his own, but in the locker room, because that was really, it was about, that was Michael Strahan's team, pretty much. And you had guys that left after that year. Of course, Tiki Barber had retired, Jeremy Shockey, who was, he could be a lightning rod of sorts. And then you had the stability that Strahan brought, and then he retires after that Super Bowl. And I think it may have taken a couple years for really the team to transform into what it's going to be now under Eli's leadership, under Coughlin's leadership, under the new leaders on defense. So the team kind of redefining itself now in the wake of that first Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 42.
Absolutely, and that's underrated. I mean, if you were to look at a football team like a job, there's chemistry, there's different personalities. Not everyone gets along, not everyone loves the boss. And I think what you find is when you got a team like that with a common goal, in this case, we're down, no one likes us. Even Rex Ryan thinks we're the second best team in New York, which was disproven, thankfully. It's us against them. Let's rally around the troops. And Coughlin's got a knack for doing that, and he's developed over the years, I guess, as he's gotten older and wiser, a way to relate to his players. When Justin Tuck was struggling, he sat him down the week before the Jets game, basically gave him this unbelievable speech that essentially turned Tuck's season around. And Tuck had been hampered by nagging injuries, and he basically said, I've got to fight through it. I got to play. My team needs me, and it worked. So there's some sort of magic in there. I know there was a good piece written in the Wall Street Journal today by Jason Gay talking about the proverbial heart of the team, and he said Coughlin epitomizes that heart. You can't necessarily quantify it, but this team has heart.
Exactly. So with with the Giants coming forward this year, and I saw the early lines with the early betting lines for next year. Remember, gambling is really more about not necessarily about the sport, but it's really about getting the money spread around the way that it needs to be. But the Patriots have been installed as favorites again to win the Super Bowl next year. So
I saw that, and the Giants are, I think the Eagles are ahead of them again, the Saints, and a couple other teams. That's good news for the Giants. They're underdogs already.
Yep, it'll keep on fueling them. And now, what are they going to do? Any words with as far as the offensive line? You look at or defensive line, excuse me. Justin Tuck, the emergence of Jason Pierre-Paul, and there's Osi Umenyiora, Kiwanuka, the linebacker, Matthias Kiwanuka. Is Justin Tuck? Is he going to be back next year? That's really the thing that I think I've been hearing about.
Yeah, that's the question, as well as in preseason, OC was having some issues with his contract and going back and forth with unheralded general manager Jerry Reese, who's assembled this team greatly. Hard to say. You hear a lot now, but everyone's still celebrating. The parade just finished, so we'll see. But if that does happen, the Giants, they do not have any qualms about stocking up on the defensive line. What they do need to address is the offensive line. Well, it pretty much protected Eli well all year. They just can't run the ball, and I think they've got to get some big guys on that line to kind of replace some of the older veterans whose time may be up, and keep Eli off his back.
Exactly, and it looks like the running back situation, as long as Brandon Jacobs, and Ahmad Bradshaw can both stay healthy. Jacobs, though, if one person needs to be talked to, I'd say it's Jacobs, who, and I had some reservations as soon as he put on number 27 for the Giants, because as you know, that was Ron Dane. And he honestly has some of those same tendencies too. It's like, wait a minute, big fella, you don't go east to west. Remember, you're a north-south guy.
Oh, I agree. All during this playoffs, I was texting during the playoff games with a friend of mine, and that was one of the recurring themes. I'm tired of Dane. I mean Jacobs tippy-toeing. I'm tired of Dane. I mean Jacobs not being able to bounce off a tackle. And yeah, he's really got to step it up. Or maybe the Giants need to look in another direction. You know, they could always get younger at running back, and in this league with the emergence of the quarterback, you know, sometimes you can plug in a fourth, fifth, sixth round guy, and he emerges as a star, or at least a contributor. So that may be the direction they go.
All right, perfect. Well, Chris, we're just about out of time here. We kind of run a taut ship here at Inside Sports. So everybody watching us live on Ustream.tv, thank you for watching. And if you're catching us, one of the recordings either on Blip.tv or on YouTube, and of course all of our fans out there on iTunes, we're also there. So Chris, do you have any final words for your adoring public out there?
Oh, I just want to thank you again, Charles, and congratulate your wife, too, who I know is a big Giants fan. We both happen to be in Arizona this year to see that remarkable comeback. But you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at chrislsports.com. As you said, I'm on footballnation.com. My latest piece today, which was just posted this morning, is titled Greatest New York Giants Coach of All Time, Tom Coughlin or Bill Parcells. Click on there, like me, become a follower, comment, tell me I'm crazy, whatever. I enjoy the feedback, and I'm still writing my West Coast View column for sportsclimax.com.
All right, perfect. So what we're going to have to do is, you know, when football season rolls around, we're going to have to kind of make this a recurring thing. I think you and I make a pretty good team breaking down the NFL. And as I say here at Inside Sports, we're changing the world one sport at a time. And when I look at you and look at what you say and what you write, I think you fit that mold as well, Mr. Lardieri.
Likewise, I would love that opportunity. Thank you very much. And I'll have you know I drink my coffee out of my Inside Sports mug every morning.
All right, there we go. And, hey, that said, everybody, here's to everyone out there. This is Charles E. Smith, Jr. for Chris Lardieri. Thank you for watching, and I put together a little montage for everyone of some of the moments of the Super Bowl. So go ahead and enjoy, and thank you for watching.
Thanks.